Classic is indeed an understatement for today's history lesson on Hibiki Quickie. It all started with a lowly engineer who worked for Hewlett Packard. In 1981, he got the call up to the big leagues, to Atari. Howard Scott Warshaw was a successful game designer at first, who had definitely his ups and downs with E.T. and today's game, YAR'S Revenge, released in 1981 by Atari. With weird titles at the time like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where players literally had no clue what to do, and the astonishingly bad E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which for the most part put the company out of business. Howard Scott Warshaw's first endeavor into Atari was classic, if not genius, with YAR'S Revenge. Now, if Raiders and E.T. were the bastard sons of Warshaw, YAR'S Revenge is definitely his baby, his pride and joy. It's one of the most innovative games ever released and doesn't get enough praise for the innovation it delivered. So let's take a look at how it all began with the development of this classic game. YAR'S Revenge began as a licensed port of the Cinematronics game Star Castle for the arcades. Warshaw's original design for the Atari 2600 conversion was nearly identical to Star Castle. A powerful cannon is protected by 3 layers of counter-rotating shields. The player must shoot holes in these shields in order to destroy the cannon inside. But once these holes are made, the cannon can also shoot out at the player. If the outermost layer is completely destroyed, new layers of shields are grown. The enemies in the game are 3 free-roaming mines that hunt your ship down. Over time, while the game was development, changes were drastically made until the final product, which would turn out to be YAR'S Revenge, had little to no resemblance to Star Castle. The atmosphere of the game for the 2600 is one of the creepiest and trippiest of all time. Definitely have the lights turned off when you pop in this one. Now, you definitely have to use your imagination with Atari games, but for the time, the graphics were great. The gameplay was innovative in a way that it'll actually allow the joystick movement to be a part of the game instead of the usual counting on buttons. You play as an insect character of the Yar race, and their planet Razak are named after Ray Kazar, the CEO of Atari at the time, which was a joke from Howard Scott Warshaw. He would later go on to say that he never thought Ray Kazar would notice, and I don't believe he did. All along, Howard Scott Warshaw wanted to call the game YAR'S Revenge, and lied to one of the marketing employees of Atari that the CEO Ray Kazar approved of the name when he really didn't. He also swore that the employee to secrecy, assuming this guy is going to run back and tell everyone. The name was never changed, and it worked. YAR'S Revenge is also innovative in a way as one of the first video games ever to have an actual story with it. A miniature comic book was actually included in the game YAR'S Revenge to illustrate the story in the game. It explained the revenge of the game's title in terms of YAR'S avenging the destruction of one of their worlds, Razak 4. In one of the YAR'S Revenge commercials, it was actually the first acting gig for Seth Green, believe it or not. Look how young he was in it. The game has seen a plethora of remakes, from the GBA to Xbox Live Arcade. In 2005, after decades, YAR'S Revenge finally saw a sequel titled YAR'S Return. It was released on the Atari Flashback 2. The game was received quite well at the time, and it definitely launched Howard Scott Warshaw into recognition, which would give him big titles to work on like Raiders and E.T. Dropping the ball nonetheless, Howard Scott Warshaw's game YAR'S Revenge was insanely innovative, like I said, still fun to this day, creepy, definitely like an acid trip at times. Get ready to pop it in, because this is one of, if not the greatest Atari 2600 game ever created. On Hibiki History, thanks for checking out one of the greatest games of all time, YAR'S Revenge.
Class dismissed.